Okay, this is our R.1 notes. We're going to review distance and midpoint. Distance, length, how far it is from one thing to another. It's always going to be what kind of a number.
Big. Positive.
May not always be big, but it's always going to be positive. You're going to go to Lowe's and be like, can I get negative 12 feet of... No, they're going to look at you and be like, what? Positive. Always, always, always positive. Write that down. Remember that. Distance is always what?
Positive.
Always positive. Good. So always, my handwriting's not super. Always positive. There are two formulas that we're going to talk about today, the distance formula and the midpoint formula. You guys have seen this before. When I talk about midpoint, what is the midpoint of something? The middle, the center. So if you're finding the midpoint, if you wanted to know the midpoint or average of your grades, what would you do with all your numbers? Add them up, divide by 2. It's the exact same thing. We just have to pay attention to our signs. If I look here at the distance formula, let's talk about the distance formula. We have one huge radical. We're going to take the square root of whatever number is underneath at the very end. We are not going to use decimals. We're going to simplify radicals. What do you guys notice? Tell me what you notice about this formula. Just looking at it. Anything the same? Anything together? Okay, you keep the x's together and the y's together. What do you do to the x's and the y's? You subtract them, right? And you square them. So when I subtract and I square, my number should be what kind of a number? Positive. Make sure you guys remember that. You will make a silly mistake and tell me you get negative 4 squared is negative 16. That's not right. You will not get the right answer. So what you're essentially doing is you're taking whatever the x part is of the points, subtracting them and squaring them. Then you take the y parts, subtract them and square them, then add them together. Do not get hung up on, okay, if I have 3, 5, and 7, 1, well, which one's x2, which one's x1? Does it really matter? Yes or no?
No.
No. Look, if I write these points underneath each other, I do this a lot just to keep myself organized. This is my x, this is my y. Think about it. What is 3 minus 7? Negative 4. What's negative 4 squared? 16. What's 7 minus 3? 4. What's 4 squared? So does the order matter? No, you just have to remember that you keep the x's together. Make sense? All right, so let's do this. I like to work and show all of my steps. There are going to be times when you guys get to the end and you have a silly mistake. You tell me that 3 plus 5 is 15. If you don't show me how you got from step A to step B to C to D, and all you tell me is the wrong answer, I cannot give you credit. But math is it's a process. It's all about steps. So if you show me your work, you show me how you were thinking, you show me what you're doing, I can give you credit all along the way. So if this is a 10-point question and we get to the end and you make one little mistake, no big deal. I can take a point or 2 off. But if you skip a bunch of steps and I don't see where your mind was and what you were thinking, then I can't just assume that you know what you're doing. So if we go to do this, we're going to keep our x's together. Again, guys, I just told you, it does not matter what order you do them in. I like to kind of fill in my formula first and then just plug the numbers in. If you get your signs wrong, if you add in the parentheses and subtract in the middle, your answer is going to be wrong. So make sure you're paying attention. What are my x values? 3 and 7. I'm just going to say 3 minus 7. If you do 7 minus 3, that's perfectly fine. You'll get the same answer. What are my y's? 5 and 1, 1 and 5. Doesn't matter. Do 5 minus 1 or 1 minus 5. It does not matter. But right there, that first step, you guys are showing me you understand what the distance formula is. You understand where the x's are, where the y's are, how to perform this. Now it's just basic calculations. Take your time and go slowly. What's 3 minus 7? Negative 4 squared. Plus, what's 5 minus 1?
4.
So 4 squared. So I have 4 squared is 16 plus 4 squared is 16, yes? Equals the square root of 32. Now, if this was a 10-point question and you circled your answer and told me that was it, you'd get 8 points. Why would I take points off? For not simplifying. All right, how do we simplify radicals? A lot of us are still, I get so confused, I don't know how to do this. You need to find the biggest perfect square and non-perfect square that goes into 32. Some of you will tell me 8 and 4. Does that work? Yeah? But is it going to be as simplified as possible? No. Watch what happens. If I do 8 times 4, you'll tell me that the square root of 4 is what? 2. So that comes outside. So you have 2 root 8. Is 8 simplified? No. You can break 8 down again to what? 4 times 2. So it would be like this. What's the square root of 4? 2. So that 2 is going to come out. So I have 2 times 2 is 4 root 2. You can simplify that way. It does not have to be the biggest perfect square and non-perfect square, but it's easier if you do it with the biggest of the non. If I could, what's another way I could break up 32? 16 and 2. Agreed? What is the square root of 16? 4. So 4 comes outside, and my answer is 4 root 2. Did I get the same answer? I use different factors. That's okay. You just have to make sure that you simplify completely. Does that make sense? Okay, now if I asked you to find the midpoint between these two things, these 2 points. Guys, you don't have to be like, oh, I can't remember the midpoint formula. Think about what middle means. You add and divide by what? 2. Would it make sense to keep the x's together and the y's together? We keep x's together in slope. We keep x's together in distance. We keep x's together in midpoint. Always keep them together. So if I go back to my original problem, what are my x values? 3 and 7. So I'm just going to say 3 plus 7 divided by 2. And then what were my y's? 5 and 1. So 5 plus 1 divided by 2. Now simplify. What is 3 plus 7? 10. And 10 divided by 2 is? 5. What's 5 plus 1? 6. 6 divided by 2 is? Where's the middle? At the point 5.3. If we get an answer and it ends up being a fraction, you can leave it as a fraction. It can be improper. You can change it to a mixed number. I don't care. If it's a terminating decimal, change it to a decimal. It does not matter to me. All those things are the same. Unless the directions specify, leave your answer in a fraction or something like that. But always, 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 guys, always, always, always simplify your answer. Always. We good? Okay, let's try the next one. Finding distance and midpoint. Again, you don't have to do this. I just write them on top of each other because, I don't know, I visually like the way it looks better. I'm going to set up my distance formula. Whoops.
So the midpoint can be a negative?
Mm-hmm. Good question. All right, there's my distance, my shell. So I'm going to put my x's in the first parenthesis, y's in the second. What are my x's? So I have -2 and 4. What are my y's? 1, -6. This is where you guys will make mistakes. What is -2 minus 4? Okay, -2 plus -4, you can look at it that way, and you get what? -6. So I have -6 squared plus, what happens when I have 2 negatives stuck right together? It turns into a positive. So 1 plus 6 is, yes, 7. All right, simplify more. -6 times -6. Positive 36. Good. Plus 7 times 7 is 49. So now simplify. What's 36 and 49? 85? Okay, if I get down here and I wrote 95 because I just made a silly mistake, it's not going to affect your whole problem. You'll get some points off because you added wrong, but if you can show me, hey, I understand, I know what the distance formula is. I know where my x's should go. I know where my y should go. I just made a silly mistake. That's okay. But if I don't see your thought process, I can't give you credit. Now I get to 85, and I think, ooh, I wonder if that breaks down into something. Some of you just know off the top of your head. Some of you don't. So if I took 85, put it over here, and I did my little upside down division, or however you guys call it. Start with the smallest prime number, 2. Does 2 go into 85?
No.
What about 3?
No. Oh, maybe.
How do you know? Anybody remember the rule?
Because
Add 8 and 5.
Yeah, and then 13.
13. Does 3 go into 13?
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh.
Okay, so let's go. Does 5 go in? You know 5 goes in because what does 85 end with?
5 times out.
A 5, so 5. Now just do division. 5 goes into 8. How many times? Once. So then I have how much left over? 3. So then 5 goes into 35 how many times? 17. Right? All right, now what? Can I break down 17 anymore?
No.
Is there a perfect square and a non-perfect square that goes into 85? No, there's not. Okay, so we're down. We have the two factors of 85 are 5 and 17. Can I break down the square root of 85? Does it break down into a perfect and non-perfect square or anything? No. So there you go, square root of 85. But you guys have to check. Don't just look at it and be like, nah, I don't think it does. Check.
So how come it's 6?
Because 5 is not a perfect square and neither is 17.
Oh, okay.
There's no perfect squares inside 85.
Okay. So when you do this, the one inside has to be a perfect square, right?
You want to break, like say I had 75. This obviously is not the answer, but say I had square root of 75. Think about money, guys. What does 75 break up into?
25.
25 and 3. Is there a perfect square in either one of those?
No.
Yes. What's the square root of 25?
5.
So you would pull that outside, and then 3 stays all by itself.
Oh, okay.
That's if you have if there's a perfect square. If there's a perfect square in there, take it out.
Okay.
All right, now if I'm going to find the midpoint, guys, what is the midpoint? The middle, right?
The x's together and then
Add the x's, divide by 2. Don't even worry about, oh, I don't know the formula. Yes, you do. You guys have a brain, you know it. What are my two x's? Negative 2 plus 4. What are my two y's? So 1 plus negative 6. Would it be okay if I wrote 1 minus 6?
Yes.
Yeah, same thing. But I'm just showing you exactly. So think, what is negative 2 plus 4? 2, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. Good. What is 1 plus negative 6, or 1 minus 6?
5.
What kind of 5? Good. Negative 5. So I have negative 5 over 2. Is that okay to leave it as an improper fraction? Absolutely. Another way I could write it is 1 comma what? Negative 2.5. Good. What's another way? 1 negative 2 and a half. Those are all good. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second, and you guys do the third one, then we'll do it together. Okay, here's our distance. You guys, do you agree with me on step number 1? Do I have my x's correct and my y's? Yeah. Okay. 8 minus a negative 11, you guys agree 19? Yes? Yeah. If not, tell me. Negative 2 minus 7, you agree is negative 9? Square them both, I get 361 and 81. And then I come out with 442. Okay, so now I came over here to the side and I said, wait, can I break this down? Can I do any more?
No, I don't think so.
Anybody? Let's look. Okay, I started off with my smallest prime number 2. 2 goes into 442. Do you guys agree 221 times? Okay, so let's see if anything goes into 221. 2? No. Okay, back to 221. 2 does not go into 221. What about 3? Real quick, you guys should be able to tell me if 3 does or not.
No.
Add up the digits. Good. What's 2 plus 2 plus 1? 5. So no. What about 3? We just talked about 3. My bad. 5. We know 5 doesn't. 7? 11? Do we think this breaks down at all?
No.
So then there, look, you just have big old gross square root of 442. You will get numbers that are big that do not reduce. Do not freak out. I'll see you guys feverishly erasing and you do the problem again. Trust yourself a little bit. Check, but then trust yourself. So let's do midpoint real quick. What are my two x's for midpoint? So I have 8. Do I add them together or subtract? Add. Good. 8 plus negative 11. And then what about my y's? Negative 2 plus 7 divided by 2. So, ladies and gents, what is 8 plus negative 11? Negative 3 over 2. And then what's negative 2 plus 7? 5 over 2. What's another way I could write negative 3 over 2 and 5 over 2? Negative 1.5 and 2.5. I could write negative 1.5, positive 2.5. Agreed? Not crazy hard. Not crazy hard. Okay, that's all I wanted to start with today. I will upload this in just a second.